I am so grateful to be here tonight, and I just want to thank Alex and Grant, both Alexes, I should say, Jerome, everybody for putting on the event tonight and giving us this chance to be together. So what I'm going to talk about with you this evening is how to become the author of your own story in the age of AI. And I think that aligns nicely with our theme of Speak Up. So I want to start off by hearing from you all. How do you use AI or artificial intelligence in your daily lives? I know it's permeating our work lives and for some of us our personal lives. So how are you using it? Just shout it out. Anybody?
Tech support.
Tech support. What else? Emotions.
Email maintenance.
Emails, car maintenance. Emails is one that I do too. Efficiency. Anybody else?
Interview prep.
Interview prep.
Diet plans.
Diet plans. I also use it for recipes.
Writing obituary.
How did I know? That's my mother back there. She works in a funeral home, and I knew that she was going to say that. You definitely don't want to get an obituary wrong. Yes, so we are all using AI, right? It is helping us to be more efficient. And right now, algorithms are learning to write essays. They are learning to compose music. They are learning to design marketing campaigns, and they can even mimic human conversation. But what I want to remind you all this evening is that AI cannot live a life. They cannot build relationships, and they cannot walk through hardship and come out the other side of that with that hard-earned wisdom. Algorithms cannot tell your story. And yet, more and more, the world is trying to tell us who we are. Social media tells us what success looks like. Institutions tell us what achievement looks like. And algorithms are telling us what to pay attention to. And slowly, without even realizing it, we are beginning to live someone else's narrative. And so that's why I've been researching and practicing something I call whole story living, which I'm going to get to and talk to you all about tonight. Because I think the real question that we need to ask ourselves today isn't whether AI will shape the future, but rather, will we be able to remain fully human inside of that future? So, another quick show of hands. How many of you have ever felt like you were living or supposed to be living a certain type of life? This might look like, oh yes, you guys got it. Okay, this could look like maybe my dad wanted me to pursue this major because it would give me financial stability, or my mom wanted me to have grandkids right away, or even something as simple as, I followed that group of friends even though I knew it wasn't right. It didn't feel good. So anybody have an experience like that? Anybody? Hands? Show hands? Okay, this is a trick question, you guys. Every single hand should be up because we've all had an experience like that, right? And that's because throughout history, stories have shaped the way that we see ourselves. Stories have shaped culture. They have shaped perspective. They have shaped our identity and our experiences. But today, something unusual, dare I say unprecedented, is happening. Our stories are increasingly being written by systems, by algorithms, right? Those algorithms determine what we see. They also, the platforms that we are on, they're rewarding outrage. They reward sensationalism. They reward misinformation, and they reward performance. And tack onto that the issue of AI now generating endless versions of content, that it is becoming harder and harder to decipher what is real and what is fake. So I just want to remind you tonight that the danger isn't in the AI itself. The danger is in forgetting that we are the authors of our own lives. And if we don't intentionally shape our stories, the algorithm will. So the question on the slide that I would have had up was, who is writing your story? And I was going to show you a video tonight from, I was tinkering with this presentation this morning. Grant knows I sent him an email this morning. But it was, I saw it was on PBS NewsHour, if you want to look it up, with a scientist called Michael Pollan, Pollan. And in this short clip, he talked about how we are outsourcing what he calls our consciousness to AI. And what he meant by that was, he said, these moments when we just quiet our minds to think and reflect and now we grab a phone or we go to a screen. And so he said, in this quest for efficiency, we really need to think about what it is that we are outsourcing. And to him, he defined that as our consciousness. And so I wanted to make that a little more relatable and use a story from my own life, so hopefully you can relate it to your lives about what this looks like. Again, when what it means when we outsource not just our attention, but also things like companionship and relationship that a lot of people are using chatbots to replace nowadays. Maybe it's our recipe making, which I do as well. It's our car maintenance, all these things that we used to talk to other humans about. So we need to think about what we're missing. And so if the PowerPoint would have been up tonight, I had a picture on the screen of one of my best friends and I. Her name is Carrie. I had a picture of us running together recently, and on the other side of the screen, I had a picture of Carrie's recent social media post. So hang with me here. I was using this example because I met Carrie a couple years ago. I met her at a basketball practice, and she sat down next to me, and she noticed that I had running shoes on, and she said, "Hey, are you a runner?" And I was like, I like to run. I'm really slow. And she's like, "Oh yeah, me too." So we exchanged phone numbers and we decided to go on a long run together. So for us, that's about an hour of running / jogging. And over that period of time, we talked to each other. We got to know each other a little bit, and we realized we had a lot in common. So over the course of the past 2 years, Carrie and I have been running together once a week, and it's usually about an hour or more. And during that time, we talk about our lives. We talk about our kids and our spouses and everything going on, and a lot of times we're really vulnerable with each other. And so it's a consistent time period that we've set that we meet with each other, and we've developed a very deep relationship from that time period that we spend together. And so I just wanted to juxtapose that on the screen. You would have seen the juxtaposition, but Carrie is also a very positive person, and she's extra positive on social media. So the post that I had is a very typical Carrie post. It's amazing weekend with great friends, and she has all these pictures of her weekend, and then the next post on her feed will just be like, incredible day with my beautiful family. And so we all do this, right? We all perform or show the best parts of ourselves. And I know that Carrie gets a lot of likes on her posts and a lot of comments. And so when I was preparing this presentation, I thought what a great illustration of what that means for us, right? So if we substitute that deep relationship, that time, for the dopamine hits, those little baby dopamine hits we get when somebody likes our post or comments on our posts, what we're really missing is human relationship, right? And so I told you that story because I want to illustrate and remind us that these platforms, these social media platforms and these chatbots, they weren't ever built to hold our full humanity. They were built for ranking, for attention grabbing, and to make money. It's a billion-dollar industry. And so when we think of it that way, I think we need to think about what that leaves us with. And it leaves us with a pressure to perform. Right? That, again, are we living into someone else's narrative? Are we performing our lives for now these platforms? Are we chasing metrics instead of meaning? I think my example from Carrie is a really good example of that. A couple weeks ago, I had a situation with my son. I was really upset, and I got to vent to Carrie on our run. And that like on a post is never going to replace the hug that she gave me after that run. And then she went to my favorite coffee shop and brought me my favorite coffee. Her daughter tore her meniscus playing basketball. A couple weeks ago, Carrie called me crying from work, and I was like, don't worry about anything. I dropped everything. I'm like, I got dinner. Don't worry about it. I'll be there. These are the connections that we can't lose. We can't replace those with these likes that we see. Okay, great job. No one's going to talk about those types of things on social media. So we can't chase metrics instead of meaning. And then obviously, I think we all know this, but it's worth saying, we can't compare our lives to other people's highlight reels, to their curated feeds, to they're showing their best, right? Because if we start to do that again, it leads us into living into someone else's story. So I say all that to bring us to this point where the question becomes, how do we stay human in this algorithmic world? And my answer is something I call whole story living. And whole story living is the practice of living your life as the author of your own story. So it's reclaiming your agency, it's reclaiming your time, understanding that you hold the pen to your story and that you can shape your experiences, instead of living as a character trapped in someone else's narrative. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, those narratives sometimes, they have always come from dominant narratives, from culture, but in the time that we're living in now, we're seeing them increasingly being molded by machines and by systems. So we need to be very careful of that. And so how do we do that? Well, there's 4 pillars to whole story living. I'm going to go over each of them a little bit, but I'll give you them all at once here. The first one is narrative aliveness. The second one is relational intelligence. The third one is human-centered rhythms. And the fourth one is the sacred ordinary. So let's talk about them. The first one is narrative aliveness, as I mentioned. And this just means that you pay attention to your life like a storyteller. So that means you become aware and observant of your experiences, the moments in your life, the lessons that you've learned, and your growth. So it's the idea that your life isn't unfolding in random moments. It's not the Instagram grid. Your life is a narrative unfolding. And this has been a true gift to me getting older. I'm 41 this year, and I have to say it is a beautiful practice to look back at my life, to look back at certain situations where I took a crappy job, but I met my husband at that job. I took a risk here and did this one thing, and it led to this thing, and then I met that person there, and then this happened. And so it's just a gift to look back at those points in your life and see the threads that have woven together that narrative unfolding. It's a beautiful way to become alive to your story and to remember that that's what's happening. And then the second pillar is relational intelligence. I think I illustrated that for you hopefully pretty well in the story with Carrie. But this is the idea that stories are lived through relationships. So again, we need to remember that the algorithms optimize for attention, but human beings were created for connection. And so if we want to have rich, bold, beautiful lived stories, we need to focus on the relationships in our lives, and we need to hone the skills that we need to cultivate good relationships in our lives. We need to build the time back into our days to sustain and create relationships. So that's relational intelligence. And then the third pillar is human-centered rhythms. And this is one of my favorites because this one really pushes back against the distractions and the time that we spend in these algorithms on these screens. And this is really about creating space to think, reflect, and create, to become more aware of that consciousness that Michael Pollan had talked about in the video I was going to show you. So this is just a reminder that your best ideas are not going to come from scrolling. And so to illustrate this one, which I think is really important, I was just reading a book. I just started this book this week. It's called Slow Productivity. And in the first chapter of the book, the author talks about a journalist named Jim McPhee. And Jim had a very illustrious career. He won a Pulitzer. He won numerous awards for his work. But when he started out as a journalist, he was working for the New Yorker in the 70s, and he got assigned a very large story, the largest of his career. And that story required him to he worked on it for about a year. It ended up being 30,000 words. It's like a book now. They released it in 2 parts, but he was studying a community in New Jersey. So he had to interview all the people in that community. He had to really integrate himself in the community and read about the community. And he did that work for months. But when he sat down to write the story, he was completely overwhelmed. He had no idea how he was going to move forward to get this story composed into a narrative so that people could actually understand it. And so what he did was he sat on a picnic table for 2 weeks, every day for 2 weeks, and he stared up at the sky and he contemplated what he was going to do with this story. And he said it was at the end of those 2 weeks that he finally had that aha moment. And and it was a person he had interviewed named Fred. He realized Fred's story was the thread that was going to connect all the other threads, and he went on, and it was a great story, but it made me pause to think in preparing for this presentation. Can you imagine thinking about the same thing for almost a whole day for 2 weeks, just staring at the sky? My kit is Dr. Majeski in here. He's my boss. I can't imagine. He asked me what I was doing all day. I said, I sat on my picnic table outside because I was trying to figure out this project, right? It's so out there for us, but you do not need to sit on a picnic table every day to figure out your next project. But I do think that when we're talking about human-centered rhythms, we can make space in our days to think. We can take a walk without our phones. We can write in our journals for 20 minutes. We can pray or meditate in our days. And so that's when we say human-centered rhythms, that's a really important pillar that helps us come up with ideas and thoughts that are our own. And then the last pillar relates to that one, the sacred ordinary. This is one of my favorite pillars to practice too. And this is just the idea that meaning lives in everyday life. So your story is not happening someday. It's happening today. It's happening right now in this moment. And so the sacred ordinary requires us to step back and realize that our lives are unfolding and we need to be present for them. One of the practices that I use to practice the sacred ordinary is I try to write every day. I'm not super great at it, but I do try to write every day 5 things in my journal that I was grateful for from the day before. And these are things like, the other day I wrote that I sprinkled a little cinnamon on my coffee and I held it up at my desk and watched the rain. And it was very peaceful. I just kind of sat there. My son told a joke at the dinner table last night and he made us all laugh. And I wrote that down. It was such a beautiful moment. And so the practice of writing it down has helped me hunt for those moments in my days. So that's a practice. That's practicing the sacred ordinary. And so I have been studying, when I say I've been practicing whole story living, one thing I have been doing this year, we're into March right now, is every month I've been taking an aspect of whole story living and I've been trying to live that out and to study it and to think about it. And so I had some pictures up on the slide for you. But what I have taken from that work so far is that we really do have a human advantage in the age that we are in right now. So AI can do a lot of things for us. It writes really fast for us, and it may even write better than us, but it will never live better than us. I believe the future will not belong to people who produce the most content. The future will belong to people who live the most meaningful stories, because meaningful stories build trust. They build community. They build movements. And most importantly, they build a life you actually want to live. You get excited to wake up every day. So if there's one thing that I hope you take from my presentation this evening, it's this. Your life is not a script someone else wrote. We cannot keep giving our time and attention away. You are the author of your life story. And in a world increasingly shaped by machines, the most radical thing you can do is live a deeply human story. How do you do that? We talked about that a little bit in this presentation, but pay attention. Pay attention to what's going on. Connect with other people. Talk to people. Connect with them. And create meaning. Maybe you need to sit on a picnic table and stare up at the sky, or write a poem, or make a song, or read a book, or have a conversation. And most importantly, as we'll be reminded tonight, speak up, because the world really does need your story. Thank you.
It's kind of interesting to see the talk that Meg just gave around speaking up in an industry right now where we're dominated by AI, because I'm going to talk a lot about human connection. So I'm not sure if you realize this, Alex, with the way you set up the speakers, but it's very, very poignant for what I'll talk about a little bit tonight. So I'm going to be upfront with you all. I tend to do things a little bit differently in environments like these. I don't like to just talk at people. I like to engage you. I like to motivate you, challenge you, and ultimately I like to encourage people. So that's my goal here tonight, that we'd all leave here feeling a little bit challenged, perhaps, but also encouraged based on our time here together. As Alex mentioned, I am a spoken word artist. It's something that I do on the side. I really enjoy it. I like writing poetry, and that is something that I'm going to do tonight. Is I'm going to share some poetic delivery of my message. Before I do that, though, I want to acknowledge my biggest support system, which is here tonight, my wife and my 3 daughters. So they are my biggest inspiration. They push me to be all that I can be on a daily basis, and I know that I would be much less of a man without them. Okay, so with that backdrop in mind, I have 2 primary objectives tonight. Number 1, I want us all to be acutely aware of the fragility of life. I know that sounds kind of morbid to say, but I say it sincerely as a father who watched my second daughter fight for her life, barely seeing the age of 1 month old as she was born with a congenital heart defect, which meant she needed immediate surgery and life-flighted to Nationwide Children's Hospital. But she's here today, thriving. I say that as a brother who, over the past couple of years, had to watch one of my older brothers fight for his life through a cancer diagnosis, and another brother rushed to the ER because there was a blood clot found in his lung, which threatened his life as well. And I say that as a son who had to watch my own dad die of cancer 3 weeks before my wedding day to my beautiful wife. So life is fragile. Life is precious, and sometimes life is short. So that's goal number 1, that we would all leave here just being acutely aware of the fragility of life. Goal number 2, I want everyone to be motivated with that backdrop in mind to love others fiercely, to love them fervently, to love them courageously and intentionally. You all are cared about by many people in your life, and you also care about a lot of people in your life. I think we sometimes take that for granted, and we move on throughout our days in such a way that we forget to articulate that love and care for others until we arrive at a place where it's too late. And so the second goal is that we would be people who are not passive in our love for one another, but we are active and passionate about that. So the way I'm going to go about achieving those 2 goals tonight, being acutely aware of the fragility of life and to encourage us to love courageously and fiercely, is through the form of poetic delivery. Now, my only request when I do this is that you would just kind of sit and fully engage with what I will share. If there are things that move you, be moved. If there are things that anger you, be angry. If there are things that make you want to cry, then cry with your whole heart. Let's be people that are willing to sit with some emotion this evening and fully embrace it, because as Meg said, we're human, and we should embrace our humanity. Now, the last thing that I'm going to say before I jump in here is that I'm very passionate about mentoring and developing others. I'm particularly passionate about mentoring and developing the next generation of young men. I would not be where I am today if other strong, vulnerable, emotional men did not pull me aside and help me build into who I am today. And so you're going to hear a little bit of that passion come out in the time here tonight. Now, I say that this does not mean I'm not passionate about the next generation of young women either. I obviously have 3 young daughters. I pour into them every night and tell them stories and encourage them to be all that they can be. But I do believe that God has given me a passion to particularly engage young men in ways that help them be more than what society says that they need to be, that they need to be strong and stoic and all these other things. That they can be that, but there's so much more that we can be if we would reject the notion of the stereotypical strong man. So you're going to hear that come out a little bit tonight. For this first piece, I'm not going to really provide any context. I'm just going to deliver it, and then I will build the context in afterwards. I do that intentionally because I want you to interpret and fill without any sort of prompting from me. I recognize that as the person on stage often can guide and lead people where I want them to go, and I do have somewhere where I want you to go. But I'm not going to be the one to help you arrive there. I believe that we will arrive there collectively together. So I'm going to put this down, and I am going to share the first piece of poetic delivery here. Mental health, mental health. I'm over here screaming for some help. But the only way I can be seen is through these tiny little screens where everyone expects nothing but perfection. So there's no way I can say I've failed. Hell no. I need to get this filter right. Take this photo 20 times just to post it for some likes, even though I toss and turn all night while I think of taking my own life. Yeah, ain't no way that's coming out. So instead, I'm going out to get some booze, buy new shoes, do it all with a great big smile so I never plant those seeds of doubt. Inside the minds of my peers, gotta drown it out with tons of beer and pretend everything is good when I raise that glass with a laugh and cheers, choking back those tears. I haven't felt a sense of love or care or true affection in many years, so when I look in the mirror, that reflection, my biggest fear, standing all alone, just me and my phone. But I gotta stay active, gain new followers, so I throw up the deuce and Happy New Year! Though I'm not truly happy. And I know I should raise my voice and speak, but I've bought that lie that's grown inside that's showing emotion like this is weak, and now I'm in too deep. Because I've got that image and reputation that I'll do anything just to keep. So in the darkness I sit and weep with heavy tears falling to my feet, and I'm not hungry, don't want to eat, man, all I want to do is just go to sleep and maybe not wake up. I won't have to deal with the pressure and stress. I'd finally get long-lasting rest and not have to deal with all this stress and the anxiety trapped inside my chest. Yes, maybe not wake up. No more surface-level conversations. No more, how are you today? No more lying when I fake that smile and respond and say that I'm okay. I'm not okay. And that's becoming clear to me throughout the day. When I look at all these things around me and realize they're in the way of true belonging, where I desire to share my heart with those around me, but it's overwhelming. Man, it's just so blinding. I can no longer see that noble man inside me. That noble man I once thought I could be. Yeah. You see, that man is trapped with no way out, even though he kicks and screams and shouts, and all he wants is to be seen and heard. What he really wants is to experience true brotherhood, where life is full of laughs and tears, where he can be himself and share his fears, where he's not picked on by his peers, and gatherings consist of more than beer. Yeah. You see, that man is trapped. And he'll never experience that place, and I've tuned out his voice with all kinds of medication, like popping pills and midnight thrills and playing video games, and I'll keep on trying all of these things as a way to numb this terrible pain. Man, I'm in pain. And I wish I could talk about it, but I don't know how. And I've fought it for so damn long now. What do I do now? And I just want the pain to stop. But instead of talking, I'll take this gun and pull the trigger and pop. Now, I want you to know that the intensity you hear in my voice as I share that first poetic speech is not just performance, it's experience. As someone who has felt the pressure to maintain this perfect, never stressed out, successful student athlete reputation, I know what that pressure is like. The intensity you hear in my voice is not just acting. It's from being on the receiving end of a phone call from a dear friend of mine, crying, drinking liquor, wanting everything to end. The intensity you hear in my voice is hearing about the deaths of multiple peers who wound up dead due to overdosing when no one even knew that they were struggling. You see, we are all fragile. None of us are immune to the pressures of life that have the capacity to break us. None of us are immune to the slow and steady process of self-isolation that leads to self-condemnation and eventually results in self-elimination. None of us are immune. Being in a state of fragility without any perceived help is a very hard place to be in. And I strongly believe that the cure to this level of isolation and internal battle is found in deep, meaningful relationships. And my hope is that we would leave here tonight more motivated than ever to take action by not just acknowledging the fact that we need to have relationships, but to cultivate those relationships before it's too late. Because, again, life is fragile. Now, the second piece that I'm going to share specifically highlights the kind of power that can cure some of this isolation that we heard in this first piece. Now, before I get to that piece, though, I do want to share a little bit with you about the relational condition that we find ourselves in today. And again, I think this connects really well with what Meg shared from an AI perspective, but I'm going to talk about mental health and relationships here. So at the end of 2023, the Surgeon General of the U.S. declared that we, as a nation, are in an epidemic of loneliness. The number of close friends that the average American has already been on the decline since the 1990s, so much so that some researchers are calling it a friendship recession. And in particular, it's hitting the male population in tremendous waves. The lack of social connection poses a significant risk for individual health and longevity, which then results in the breakdown of strong communities. So I want to share a few statistics with you about why this is so important. So loneliness and social isolation increase the risk of premature death by 26%. More broadly, lacking social connection, what Meg just talked about, it can increase the risk of death so much so that it's equal to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Poor or insufficient social connection is associated with increased risk of disease, including heart disease, and risk of stroke. We're going to see higher rates of anxiety, depression, and dementia, loss of memory. Additionally, the lack of social connection is also going to have significant impact on respiratory virus and illness. And again, it's hitting the male population significantly. 1 in 5 single men, 1 in 5, say that they have 0 close friends. 0. Why does that matter? Isolation, like I just mentioned, impacts one's health. It impacts our immune system. In addition to the statistics I just mentioned previously, here are a few others. Those who are suffering from isolation, more susceptible to cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, sleep dysfunction, heart disease, and they are more likely to be at risk for suicidal ideation. Now, when we talk about isolation, this shows up more than just being physically alone. And I had an image on the screen here that depicted this idea of you can be in a multitude of people, in a very large crowd, but yet still like you are all by yourself. You can still feel like you're alone. So I'm not talking about, hey, let's just throw somebody in this circle and surround them by people and boom, there's the cure. No, it's more than that. It's about deep and meaningful relationship. Ones that allow you to be vulnerable. And then when that vulnerability is also reciprocated. So, Why is this hitting the male population so hard? Because unfortunately, we're in a society, and again, AI isn't helping this at all, where we don't know how to be vulnerable, we don't know how to show emotion, we don't know how to show our fears, our struggles, or our anxieties. We're supposed to be tough. We're supposed to be stoic. But when these characteristics are not appropriately balanced with emotional regulation and strong relationships, it can be a recipe for devastation. Men are half as likely to share their feelings with their friends and receive that emotional support. They are half as likely to tell their friends that they love them. Men who have operated out of this tough guy, no emotions mindset are twice as likely to have suicidal thoughts. In fact, and this may surprise you, the highest rate of suicide is men over the age of 45. Why? Because when we think about the long-term impact of being in a state of isolation, societal pressure, bottled up emotions that you never share, you end up at a place where you cannot sustain that anymore. And when you don't have any friends to share that life with, you end up by yourself and you struggle with suicide. So, I'd like to share a second piece as a cure to this. Okay? I stand here with great hope in my heart because despite all of these statistics and demographics, this does not have to be the case for us. I certainly don't want it to be the case for myself, and I certainly don't want it to be the case for my 3 nephews who live right next door to me. I want to see and help us speak up, the theme of tonight's event, to help combat against some of these statistics that we're facing, this epidemic that we're in. We do not have to be people who perpetuate this epidemic. I would not be here today if people, especially men, showed me I can cry. Toughness is more than physical toughness, it's emotional toughness. And I want, my daughters to be around men when they're older who know what it's like to have emotional toughness as well. So I pray that we can be people who would look at the epidemic that we're in, broadly of loneliness, but specifically hitting this population, and that we would be people who would provide the experience, the same type of experience that I had, where someone pulled me aside, they poured into my life, they showed me who I could be, and they modeled the way. And I, because I experienced that, want to do that for others. So, again, for those of you who know me, I'm a positive person. I like to be a glass half full type of person. And so far, this has been a pretty Debbie Downer presentation so far. And so in light of who I am and being positive, I do want to end with something that is much more positive. And I consider this to be a very good remedy for this epidemic that we're in. Because at the root cause of isolation epidemic it's a relational issue, right? And I believe that a relational issue deserves a relational solution. And again, I am all for medication, I am for healthcare, I am for all of those things, but a pill will never replace the voice of someone saying, I love you. A diet plan is never going to provide the level of self-affirmation that can come from a hug and a warm embrace. And so I'm for healthy diets and exercises and medication and therapy. Yes, all of that is good. We should do that. But that in and of itself is never going to replace the look in someone's eye that they have for you when they say, I care about you deeply. So, as a way to kind of illustrate that, this last piece I'm going to share is called The Power of a Friend. The power of a friend. There's something spiritual about it. When you feel that you can't win, and your whole life you start to doubt it, and you feel that no one gets you while you're fighting all these issues, you should own some stock and clean the way you're going through all these tissues. But the power of a friend helps you see through all the smoke. Something as subtle as a smile or some silly little joke is all it takes to snap you out that mental state you're in, to get that burden off your chest so you can rest and breathe again. Yes, that's the power of a friend. Sometimes I sit and think to myself, what if we had never met? Would I still fight all this anxiety, this heaving in my chest? Or would I have eventually gotten over it and learned to manage all this stress? I really can't say for sure, but I know that I've been blessed to have a friend like you who cares the way you do, who takes time and asks about the things that I'm going through. See, you the definition of care, and you ain't fake about it. Someone who's always been there, and the kind of friend that don't quit. And I've lost count of all the ways that you've been there for me, the way you stood me on my feet when I was down on my knees. See, that's the power of a friend. Something we all really need. Someone to remind us that we're special and to help us clearly see all the beauty we hold inside despite the oceans of tears we've cried. Someone through the thick and thin who's always right there by our side. See, that's the power of a friend. So to my dear friends, I say thank you for when you've held me on your shoulders. And I pray I can do the same for you and help you lift your heavy boulders when you're too weak and you can't talk and it hurts to open up and talk. I pray that I'm in this battle with you. I'll help you fight destructive thoughts, because that's the power of a friend. Someone who truly helps you grow. Someone that's quick to share their heart and always lets you know that you're capable, unbreakable, always sharing, way to go. See, that's the power of a friend. Someone who helps you reach your goal. The power of a friend, yes, the power of a friend. Something we all should strive to harness in each new chapter we begin. And let's not fall in line with social norms that are riddled with division and strife. Nah. Let's choose to be friends and love one another and treat each other right. Let's demonstrate how powerful true friendship can really be. In a lost and broken world, that's what people need to see. The power of a friend. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Yes, I was a head college baseball coach, so I do bring this type of energy every single day in every single speech that I give. So, yes, I am completing my doctorate degree, and I'm writing my dissertation, which is an autoethnography on my own personal lived experience, which developed and evolved into the Inside Out Leadership Program. But I will have this disclaimer, that my trials and tribulations are no better, no worse than anyone else's. They're just mine. So at no point in time are my experiences better or worse than anyone else. We all struggle. We all go through something. And you're either coming out of a storm, going into a storm, or you're in the middle of it right now. So, Inside Out Leadership Program. 80% of completed suicides are done by men. Now, this is an issue that spans genders and generations, so it's not just a male problem. But 80% of those completed suicides are done by men. And I was almost one of them. About 5 years ago, I hit rock bottom, and I almost took my own life. And from that moment in my life, I decided that as a father and as a man and the type of person that I wanted to be in my life, that I was obviously not where I was at and where I needed to be at. And how do I become the best version of myself? How do you build from rock bottom of looking down the wrong end of a shotgun to build yourself back up to become the best version that I've ever been in my life? And I don't have an ego. That is not with any sort of an egotistical attitude behind it. I have stood up here to earn the right to be able to say that through what I went through. Now, how do you build back up? How do you start from rock bottom? What's stage one, step one? Because I didn't know. And through my program and through my process, it evolved throughout over the past 5 years. And the first thing that I did was I looked in the accountability mirror and I started pointing thumbs at myself and I stopped pointing fingers at other people. The one common denominator of all the problems I was having was, guess what? This guy right here. And I looked in the mirror and I took a long, hard look at myself and I said, what are you doing wrong? What are your shortcomings? And I took a piece of paper and I split it in half, folded it hot dog style, and I wrote down on one side of that piece of paper all the things that I didn't like about myself, all the negatives about myself, and I dug deep into this. I'm not authentic. I'm not a good man. I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good partner. I'm a liar. I use people. I cheat. all these things. It's not like I was pushing, babies into the street or something like that. It's not like I was a bad, horrible person. But when you look at yourself in the mirror and you truly dive in to the negatives about your own personality of what you would love to be able to change, and you can look yourself in the eye and say, I don't like this about you. That's stage one, step one in true growth. And that's what led into the I am philosophy. Because I learned that I am are the two most powerful words that you can say to yourself. Because on the other side of that piece of paper, I wrote down everything I aspired to be for the rest of my life. I am authentic. I am a good man. I am a good father. I am loved. I am a good man in general. I'm truthful. I'm honest. I'm trustworthy. I have character. I wrote everything down. And from that moment forward, I started to look in the mirror and say the words, I am. I love you, Orion Jones. Everyone has two wolves, a good wolf and a bad wolf. And they sit on their shoulder. And they'll tell you all the reasons why you can or all the reasons why you can't. Which one do you choose to listen to? And when you start having self-love and you start looking in that mirror and saying, you're beautiful, I'm smart, I am good enough, I am loved, I am a good person. It changes you, and it changes the trajectory of your life. And if you've never done that before, I challenge you to go home and try to do it tonight. I thought it was the stupidest thing ever. I'm a dude. I'm a meat and potatoes. I come from a country background, and if you tell me to look in the mirror and tell myself that I'm loved, but I did. And the first day that I did it, I went, I love you, Orion Jones. And then the second day I did it again. And then I did it again. And I did it again. And at one point I started to commit to saying to myself, I love you. You're a good man. You can heal from this. You can grow from this. So once I looked and I worked through that I am philosophy, I then learned that I had to forgive myself. Because once you look into all the negatives about yourself, then you have to unhitch that wagon. You have to release that pain. You have to be able to say, okay, I see all these negative things about me, and I'm working towards all these positives, but I forgive myself. Because you can't move forward in your life until you forgive. And that's where the 4 pillars came along. So forgiveness ended up being the first pillar. Again, I didn't know any of this. I was just trying to heal. And so there's 4 pillars of forgiveness, gratitude, love, and faith. And the first one of forgiveness, and it starts with forgiving yourself. When you look in that mirror and you say, I forgive you, Orion Jones. I forgive you for the mistakes you've made. That's not who you are anymore. Work towards a better you. And then the next hardest thing that you do underneath that same forgiveness pillar is forgive others. Forgiving yourself's hard. Forgiving people that have wronged you. And everyone in here has those people. Hate, anger. I would sit up at 3 o'clock in the morning and take swings in the air from the people that had wronged me. I thought that I was the biggest victim. And that's the world that I lived in, and I hated, because hate and anger are human emotions that are easy. Hate and anger you can go to that well, and it's the first thing that you always feel. And that's where unhitching that wagon of forgiveness, when you're able to forgive, it's not the snake bite that kills you. It's the venom that runs through your veins. And when you let other people affect your happiness because you can't forgive them, you're the one who wears that. You're the one who experiences that pain. So walk with me here. I am. Forgive yourself. Forgive others. Then the next pillar is gratitude. Being grateful. Being grateful for your life. Being grateful for all the things that you have in your life. And I challenge you to change your mentality with these words. Things happen for you, not to you. Alex, you did do a great job of setting these speeches up, because I feel like I'm building on top of the other two, and you guys did an amazing job. And so as you think about things happening for you in your life, being grateful, the hard times that I went through created the man that stands in front of you here today. It happened for me, not to me. And also, instead of saying the things that had happened to me, I challenge you to replace these words as well. I get to. How many times do you say, I have to go to school, I have to go to work, I have to take care of my kids, I have to make lunches, I have to go pick them up. 6 o'clock this morning, I was doing dishes. And then I was about to make lunches. And I was like, I get to. I get to do this. I get to take care of my girls today. I get to be a father. I get to go to work. I get to sleep in a bed. I realized that yesterday was an unbelievably hard day for me. And how many people in this world, in this country, and in this city would trade their best day for my worst day? Guess what? I had food in my belly, clothes on my back, roof over my head, a family that loved me. I get to. I'm so grateful for my life. I don't even know all y'all out there, and I can name you 10, 15 things right now that you can be grateful for. And it's a mindset, and it changes you. Change your attitude to change your altitude. And when you start looking at life this way, and you forgive yourself, and you forgive others, and you're grateful, then it walks you into love. Because love is the third pillar, and love is emotional control. As I said, hate and anger are the first two emotional reactions to any situation. It's the fight or flight response. The psychology behind hate and anger is fear. You either fight it or flight it. And the way that we survived is you either attack the saber-toothed tiger or you run from it. So natural biology teaches us that every time that spike of adrenaline happens, naturally your brain is going to say, do I have to fight this or do I run from it? But 99.9% of our problems and situations that we deal with where adrenaline takes over is not a survival mode anymore. The saber-toothed tiger is not there. Somebody just pissed you off. Somebody just said something wrong. Somebody just said something off to you has hurt you. And so your automatic reaction is hate and anger. And when you control yourself and you replace that with love, you learn that love is the strongest human emotion. Love heals all. That man right there said it best when he said, darkness does not drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And when you replace fear, anger, hatred with love, you become 100% in control of yourself 100% of the time. And it changes your ability for what levels you can get to in your life when you learn emotional control. When you don't let somebody else control you because you're mad at them, because you haven't forgiven them, because you have this trailer of anger that you're carrying behind you. When you allow somebody else to control your emotions by what they say to you. I'm currently running for a political position. And until you've put yourself into politics, you don't know how bad you can be hated in this world. And it's disgusting. But I said this to somebody. And they only hate me because one time in my life, or before I voted as a Democrat, and now I'm running as a Republican, and they hate me. The hatred that has been spewed towards me is unbelievable. And I said to this man, the greatest thing that I think that these words have ever came out. I said to him that the love and forgiveness that I have in my heart for you is stronger than the hate and anger that you have in your heart for me. You can hate me all you want. Okay, I'm a good man. I'm a good father. I'm a good person. I'm a good community member. I make the world a better place. And if you hate me simply because I checked a voting box 5 years ago, bro, I don't know what to tell you. And the fourth pillar is faith. And faith is the foundation of it all, and it ties it all together. But you have to understand that I'm not here tonight to tell you what to believe. But I'm here to tell you tonight that if you don't accept a higher power greater than yourself, you will never become the best version of you. My relationship with God and Christ in my life is my own personal relationship. I was raised an atheist for 44 years. I did not find God in Christ until I hit rock bottom. My suffering led to my salvation, though. And they have a funny way of introducing themselves. And when I learned that it was about relationship and not about religion, and I learned how to build that relationship with my father and my brother, and I learned that you're never alone, it changed me. It changed me when I started to learn that love guides all. Love is the number one premise and the number one power that controls everything. And it's not weakness, it's strength. It takes way more strength to love somebody than hate them. Try it. If you have anger in your heart, try replacing it with love. Anger is easy. Anger is the easiest thing that you can do. So, real quick recap. I am philosophy walks into the accountability mirror. Okay? Or accountability mirror walks into the I am philosophy. 4 pillars of forgiveness, gratitude, love, and faith. Then you walk into the Trinity of the mind, body, and spirit, which understand that the number one premise of the Trinity of the mind, body, and spirit is garbage in, garbage out. What you put in your mind, what are you watching, what are you reading, what are you listening to? Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Garbage in, garbage out. You hang out with 5 losers, 5 people who aren't motivated, guess who's going to be the 6th? Look at your friends. And what are they saying? How do they talk? How do they act? What are you listening to? I used to listen to all the worst things that you can think of. There was no accountability behind it. I didn't care. I didn't think anything was wrong with it. Then I started to realize it matters. It matters what I'm listening to. Garbage in, garbage out. Your body. Guess what? What you put in your body? What are you eating? Are you exercising? Are you working hard? Are you doing your body right? Garbage in, garbage out. And then your spirit. Same thing. What are you inundating yourself with? What are you feeding yourself on those different levels? And when you find balance in all those 3 areas of the Trinity, whew, you're like, wow, I've changed. This is what the foundation of how do you build yourself back up. How do you start from rock bottom and work your way back up the mountain? And the other thing, and if I had my slides up here, you would see, that to do this, it takes discipline. This is a journey, not a destination. This does not happen overnight, and it's continuous. It is every single day. In the book of Matthew, Peter went to Jesus and was like, how many times do I forgive my brothers and sisters? 7? And I always laugh when I think about Jesus looking at Peter going, no, dog, 70 times 7. Which in the Jewish translation is eternity. Forgive once, forgive twice, forgive as many times as you can to release them and release the pain. And that's when it's every single day. Be grateful every single day. Be forgiving every single day. Have love in your heart every single day. Have faith in your heart every single day. And it's a grind. And discipline is the way and the pathway to that. Discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs pounds. Discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs pounds. The discipline that it takes to go to class, to put healthy food, to exercise, to do the right things, is light as a feather compared to the pounds of regret. And when you push yourself to be the best, it's hard. I take a cold shower every single morning, freezing cold. I hate it, but I love it. Because it forces me to do the one thing that I don't want to do. It starts my day out with something that I have to overcome, something I don't want to do. And then guess what? It makes the rest of my day where I go, okay, I've already done something I didn't want to do. I've already done the hardest thing. Now I can try to do other hard things. It sets the table, that's where discipline walks into consistency. Because the journey of this, and I'm telling you, this isn't a bus that you get on and you get off. There's no stop. You do not stop. There's not a destination to this. It's every single day to become the best version of you. And that's where consistency of leadership, consistency of attitude, consistency of discipline comes in every single day. And it's hard. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you it's easy. But if you do what is hard, life will be easier. Follow me there. If you don't take care of your body, it's much easier to sit on the couch and not do anything. It's much easier to not chase your dreams. It's much easier to not give that extra effort, to not work hard, to not do the things that you want to do in your life. It's way easier to be lazy. But then guess what? You're going to be regretful. You're going to hit rock bottom. You're going to go through trials. You're going to go through sadness. You're going to go through more regret. That pounds of regret will weigh way more when you do the easy things. Because yeah, it's easy in the short term, but the long term will hurt you worse. So as we walk through this was my program consolidated down into a very, very short, condensed version. But I hope you understand the progression on how you can build yourself back up from rock bottom and what you can do. And I always say being able to take a knowledge nugget or two away from this talk to be able to say, yeah, I am more grateful. I should forgive this person. I should have love in my heart. I do want to unhitch that wagon. I don't want to keep this pain in my heart anymore. Okay, and a couple of fun quotes. I always have some great, Mr. Goodfellow was in my classes. He knows that I always had some great sayings, along with discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs pounds. It's not the snake bite that kills you. Okay, A couple other ones are my favorite that you guys can take with you here is that when I say that discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs pounds, excuse me, I got something in my throat right here. Yeah. So, bees don't waste their time telling flies why honey tastes better than turds. What that means is there's always going to be people that hate, okay? So that ties in with where other people put a period in your story, God puts a comma. So follow me here. People, when I started changing, said to me, you'll never change. I know you. I know who you are. I know the type of man that you are. I know the choices that you make, period. And God said, no, Ryan. That's who you were, comma, and this is who you're going to be. Where other people put a period, don't ever let somebody tell you you can't. And that's what I say, that bees don't waste their time telling flies why honey tastes better than turds. They don't. Turds are easy. They're right there laying. Honey's hard to get, okay? And you're never, ever alone. And I'm going to leave you guys with this. The one thing I didn't understand before I brought faith into my life is that I didn't understand that I always had somebody with me. I always had that spirit with me. God and Christ are always with you. In whatever capacity you believe in, that spirit, that higher power is always with you. In the Footprints in the Sand poem, when Jesus was with a man in the afterlife, and they look back on this man's story of walking along the beach, and there was two sets of footprints, and it represented the man's footprints and Jesus walking beside the man for his entire life. And as the man was closely examining his life with Jesus, he looked and he saw that in the hardest times of his life, when he struggled the most, he looked and he saw only one set of footprints. And he looked at Christ and he was like, Jesus, how could you do this to me? How could you leave me in my darkest hour? When I struggled the most, you left me. And Jesus looked at the man and said, I didn't leave you, my child. I carried you. Those footprints are mine, son. You were on my shoulders. That night that I almost took my own life, he wasn't gone. He was right there. And he picked me back up. And when I look back on my life, there's going to be one set of footprints in those sands. And it's because Christ carried me through that night. And I'm here as a father, and I'm here to give this talk to you guys here tonight. And hopefully, if anyone in here is struggling, going through a storm, you can help get out of it. And these are the things that I struggle with, and we all struggle. I go through this every single day. You go through this, hard days, tough days. Go back and revert back to this program. Forgiveness, gratitude, love, faith, the power triangle, the Trinity. How do you build yourself back up? How do you hit those rock bottoms, hit those moments, and continue on? You're never, ever alone. Thank you guys very much for listening. Appreciate y'all.